Hey, hey, hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. Ah yes, pottery. The art of shaping clay and shattering marriages. Today on rSpace, how to craft lies and keep your spouse in the kiln. Cheating wife insists her happiness comes first, so I gave her the reality check of a lifetime, divorced her, and left her with nothing. I never thought I'd find myself in this position, but here we are. Throwaway because I have friends who know my Reddit account. My 36 male wife, Angela, 34 female, and I have been married for 8 years. We've always lived what I thought was a comfortable and happy life. We have a beautiful child together, a 6-year-old daughter, Lily, who I love more than anything. I worked long hours as an engineer to provide our comfortable lifestyle, and she stayed home to manage the house and take care of Lily. This was a role that she had always insisted that she was happy with. About a year ago, Amanda started saying she was feeling unfulfilled. She felt like her whole life revolved around being a wife and a mother, and she wanted more. I understood what she meant, though I found it hard to relate. My life feels like it's revolved around being a father and a husband as well, but I found that rewarding myself. I tried to empathize with her though. Maybe she felt that way because she didn't get out of the house much. I had my career, and while that was mainly to provide for my family, it also provided me with an additional sense of purpose. So we discussed it for a while, trying to figure out what she could do to bring more fulfillment into her life. We eventually decided that she could try to get out of the house more when Lily was at school. She could sign up for a class or pick up a hobby. After a lot of discussion, she chose pottery classes, and we got her signed up for one that same week. I thought that would be the end of her fulfillment issues, and for a while it was. The house started filling up with little pots, mugs, and dishes that she started making. They weren't great at first, and they never really got any better. But I didn't pay any mind to that. It's not like she wanted to sell them or anything. For a while, her mood seemed to be improving. She was happier and had more energy. For a while, she was more engaged with me and Lily, spending more time with us. She talked about her pottery class with enthusiasm, telling us about her friends she'd met and funny stories that had happened during the day. For a while, I was glad. The pottery class seemed to be a great addition to her life, and our family was doing better as a whole because of it. But that's when things started to shift. It began when she started mentioning Janice, a new friend she'd made at her pottery class. I didn't have any suspicions about Janice at first. I was actually happy to hear that my wife had made a new friend. They would go out together after class, and sometimes they'd meet up for drinks in the evenings. It seemed like having Janice in her life was good for her. Sure, her new social life meant she was a little less present in the house sometimes, but I thought it was a small price to pay. Happy wife, happy life, as they say. And we really all were a little bit more happy. But then things started going overboard. The change in my wife had turned her into a happier person, but there was a tipping point. The outings and time away from home started to become too frequent. She was becoming less attentive at home and spending less time with me. I would have been able to live with that, but she was becoming less attentive to Lily's needs as well. Angela wasn't as involved in her daily routine anymore. She'd forget to pack her lunch for school or miss parent-teacher meetings. Things that we'd agreed early on would be her responsibility. I had to pick those up in addition to my other responsibilities at home to make up for it. At first, I chalked it up to an adjustment period as we tried to find the balance with her new social life. But then other things started to pile up as well. She started coming home later, sometimes smelling of alcohol, and she would only give vague answers when I asked about her day. She would brush me off with excuses like, "We lost track of time," or "Janice had a rough day and needed to talk." The worst part was that she didn't seem to notice or even care how these changes were starting to affect Lily. Our daughter, who was used to doing everything with her mom, started coming to me instead. I liked getting the extra attention from my daughter, but I didn't think it was worth the cost. It broke my heart to see her little face light up when Angela finally made time for her, only for the joy to fade when Angela was too distracted or tired for her. I tried to talk to Angela about how her behavior was affecting the family. I approached it gently, hoping we could work things out. I explained that I'd noticed her pulling away from me and Lily, and how it was impacting our daughter. I mentioned how I felt like she wasn't engaged in our marriage anymore either. Her response was defensive. She accused me of trying to control her and stifle her personal growth. She said she was finally happy and that I couldn't find it in myself to be supportive of her. That wasn't fair, and I told her that. I'd been fully supportive of her new hobby and her new friendship. I'd worked long hours so she could stay home and picked up the slack when she started spending more time away. I reminded her of all of that, but she dismissed me, saying something like, "Providing money isn't everything. You don't know what I need emotionally." She wouldn't elaborate on what she meant by that, and just stormed out to clear her head. That was when I started having suspicions that this wasn't just about her feeling unfulfilled anymore. Almost 2 weeks after the discussion, Angela told me she wanted to go on a weekend retreat with Janice. She claimed it was a chance for the two of them to focus on their pottery and recharge. Almost immediately, my BS radar went off. Something about the whole thing sounded off to me. I said I'd be fine with her going on the retreat, but I needed to meet Janice first. I told her I wasn't comfortable having my wife go on a trip with someone I've never met before. A reasonable request, I thought. Angela didn't see it that way. She started by making excuses, saying Janice didn't like meeting new people and that she was shy. That was the point when I was convinced that she was lying to me. I suspected that there was no weekend retreat with Janice. I started to doubt that there was even a Janice at all. I'm not the type to snoop through my wife's phone, but I felt I had probable cause. It's not a violation of trust if the trust is already being broken. So I did some investigating. I didn't argue with her about the retreat anymore. I just let her pack her things and get ready for her trip. One evening, while she was busy, I grabbed her phone and went through it. She'd been extra protective of her phone recently, but I think she let her guard down in all the chaos of packing. Sure enough, there was no retreat with Janice. I couldn't even find a Janice in her phone. Instead, what caught my eye was a message thread with a contact that was just saved as B. What I saw broke my heart. Right from the start, it was clear that she was cheating on me with this guy, Brian. Scrolling all the way up, it looked like she'd started texting him just a few weeks after she started her pottery class. The messages were flirty right from the beginning, and after a month of texting, it was clear they'd slept together. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'd been paying for these pottery classes, picking up the slack in our home, watching her slowly to neglect me and our daughter, just for her to have an affair? I was madder than I'd ever been in our 8 years of marriage. I kept calm. I took screenshots of everything and emailed them to myself as evidence. Then I went into the room where my wife was trying to pack out which bras to pack. The moment that thought came to mind, the words left my lips. Trying to decide which one Brian would like more? She snapped around to look at me, where I was standing in the doorway with her phone in my hand. I didn't expect what she said next. She shouted in disbelief that I'd gone through her phone and invaded her privacy. I was so stunned that she went on for a few seconds before I shut that down. I told her she wasn't going to flip it on me. I said her privacy didn't entitle her to betray her husband and neglect her daughter. She got up and yelled that I was making it about me. She said that nobody in the family cared about her happiness or the sacrifices that she made, and that she was finally taking it into her own hands. I brought up everything we had done to make her feel more fulfilled, all the changes that the family had gone through for her benefit. She threw that back in my face and said that I had whined and complained the whole time. That wasn't true, no matter how you looked at it. I'd been fully supportive and only tried to change things when she started to neglect Lily. At this point, she was starting to raise her voice, and I tried to tell her to keep it down so she wouldn't wake our daughter. She flipped out on me and said that I was putting Lily's needs over her own again, and that her own happiness should come first. At that moment, Lily walked into the room, looking frightened. She asked why we were shouting at each other. My heart broke, but I rushed over to her side, knelt down, and told her that we were just talking, and that I'd be in her room soon to tuck her back in. Angela didn't say a word. She just watched us silently. Lily nodded and left, but she didn't seem fully at ease. That just made me madder at Angela. Lily didn't deserve this. When I was sure she was out of earshot, I turned back to Angela and kept my voice low. I asked her if she could see what she was doing to our family and who she was hurting. I said Lily deserved better than a mother who was more concerned with sneaking off with her lover than being there for her child. Angela started sobbing, saying that she'd been so unhappy as a housewife, and she was just looking for a way to feel alive again. She said I had my career, and she needed to put her own happiness first too. I pointed out that my career wasn't me putting my happiness first. It was how I put the needs of the family ahead of my own. I said she destroyed all of our lives because she was bored, and things would never be the same again. She kept crying and offered all sorts of solutions. She'd ditch Brian, we could go to therapy, and she would quit her pottery class. None of those would solve anything. Nothing can fix this, as far as I'm concerned. She's still in the bedroom crying, and I'm calling my brother to see if Lily and I can stay the night. I might update this in the morning when I know what to do next. Wow, the audacity to cry about her happiness while neglecting her own child. She's got the gall to act like she's the only one who's ever sacrificed anything while you've been out there pulling double duty as breadwinner and backup parent. But hey, at least now you've got all the evidence saved. Get Lily out of there and give her the stability Angela clearly isn't capable of offering. Update. The next morning my mind was still in disarray, but I had some clarity. My priority was protecting Lily and making sure she was safe from any of the chaos. Lily and I had slept over at my brother's house the night before. Angela hadn't wanted to let me take her out of the house, but I wasn't going to leave her alone with her mom. I'd threatened her and told her that I'd tell her parents about what was going on if she tried to stop me. Immature maybe, but I was serious about getting my daughter out of that house. And the next morning, I called Angela and told her we needed to have a serious conversation about what happened next. I said I'd bring Lily around so she could see her, and then we'd talk about how we would move forward with separation. Angela tried to convince me to reconsider separating. She cried, begged, and promised to cut off all contact with Brian. But I was done. I told her that trust was the foundation of any marriage, and she had broken it completely. Lily was happy to see her mom, which broke my heart a little. I felt like I was about to tear this family apart, but I knew it was Angela's fault. She was the one who had put her feelings above the good of the family. After their reunion, I sent Lily to play in her room, and I told Angela that I would be filing for divorce. First, she said I was overreacting. Then she said I was punishing her for trying to find herself. I told her that finding herself didn't mean abandoning her family or breaking her marriage vows. I wasn't going to let her keep rewriting the narrative to make herself the victim. After our conversation, I went out to meet with a lawyer to start the divorce proceedings. He told me that her neglectful behavior and affair gave me a solid case. He advised me to start compiling as much documentation as possible, including evidence of her infidelity in every instance of her neglecting Lily. I already had the messages between her and Brian, and I started searching through my phone for every example of times when she had prioritized her own happiness over Lily's needs. In the following weeks, Angela tried all sorts of different tactics to get me to reconsider. She alternated between apologizing profusely and accusing me of being a controlling, heartless husband. She even tried to use Lily as leverage, saying things like, "Don't you want Lily to grow up with both of her parents in one house?" That just made me angrier. I had to remind her that I wasn't the one who had torn the family apart. She was. Eventually, the divorce was finalized and I cleared her out. I managed to win custody of Lily. The argument was made on the grounds that she was an unfit mother. It was vicious. I would have felt bad for her if I still had any love in my heart for her. Instead, I was glad. The worse they made her sound, the better my chances of winning custody. She got visitation rights 3 days a week. She tried to fight for more, but the judge sided with me based on the evidence of neglect and the affair. After the dust settled, I had to go through the difficult act of rebuilding my life with a confused 6-year-old who didn't fully understand why mom and dad didn't live together anymore. I had to make sure she understood that none of this was her fault, especially when she asked questions like, "Why doesn't mommy live here anymore?" Or, "Do you and mommy still love each other?" I told her that sometimes adults make mistakes that hurt other people, but it didn't mean she wasn't loved. Angela, of course, didn't take the divorce well. She started posting cryptic messages on social media about being betrayed and gaslit. She tried to paint herself as a victim and drum up sympathy. From the replies to her posts, it didn't seem like it was working. I'd already told her parents, my family, and our friends what had happened. Everybody was just as disappointed as I had been. Some of them had even told me that I was doing the right thing for Lily. Financially, Angela wasn't left with much. I kept the house, the car, and more than half of our savings. The judge awarded her a small alimony, but it was nothing significant. It was almost a joke, really. I was the one taking care of the child, and the affair left her in a bad position to argue for much. We divided up some of the assets, and she got a sum of money out of everything, but it really didn't amount to much in the long term. She was probably going to burn through most of it before she could get a job. It would be difficult for her to rebuild her life, but I couldn't waste any sympathy on someone who had blown up our family for an affair. I didn't confront Brian about the affair. I didn't need to. The guy wasn't important to me, and honestly, I never wanted to meet him. I can't say I'd be responsible for how I'd act if our paths crossed. I did hear that their relationship died out, though. It looked to me like Brian wasn't interested in being anything more than a side piece. I found it poetic that she'd burned her life down for a man who didn't even want to be with her. A few months have passed since the divorce, and we've fallen into a kind of rhythm. I've cut back on my hours at work to spend more time with Lily. It's not easy being a single dad, but I would give up anything for that little girl. Despite whatever Angela says, Lily's happiness always comes first to me, and I'd never complain about it. Angela has her visitation days, and I'd encourage Lily to spend time with her mom, even though I still resent her for the pain she caused us. I try to keep things civil for Lily's sake. I understand that she still loves her mom, even though I no longer do, and I don't want to do anything that could stunt her emotional development. Looking back, I don't regret how things ended. Angela insisted her happiness came first, and I gave her the freedom she desired. It had been painful, but I did what I had to do for the good of my daughter. One day when she was older, I'll let her know what really happened, and I hope she'll understand that everything was for her. It's frustrating, but not surprising that Angela is trying to rewrite the narrative to make herself the victim. I mean, don't they always? The fact that your family, friends, and even the court supported you speaks volumes about the fairness of your actions. Lily is lucky to have such a devoted father, OP. She'll see one day just how much you sacrificed and fought for her. Do you think OP did the right thing? Why or why not? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.